So yeah, welcome all. I have no visual. I'm not sure if it's my internet connection that it's a bit shaky, but again, welcome to you all. We are. I will start by saying that we are recording this session as we are recording all other sessions, and just for you to know, please state your name and the organization, and if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. And of course, just raise your hand if you have any have any questions of any kind. You're warm welcome to raise your hand or write your question in the chat box. We'll start out with a small exercise. I would like you to write in the chat box your name and if you're from a national society and or if you're from the academic world, the university, if you're a volunteer or a staff. So we just take 1 minute to write down this short presentation so we know who is in the meeting. So hi Salam from Lebanese Red Cross, very warm welcome to you. Nice to see you. And it feels comforting that Ajmal from Geneva, Volunteering Development Coordinator, is here. Then if we have any really tricky question about volunteering, we can always lean on him. Welcome Ajmal as well. St. Vincent's. We have good representations from different parts of the world. That's what this movement is about. Louise from Swedish Red Cross. And Joyce from Geneva as well, very welcome. And the French Red Cross Foundation, the organizers, warm welcome to you as well. So, unfortunately, my colleague Armel from Swedish, he's a program officer in DRC, working for Swedish Red Cross, not here. My name is Jacob, and I'm from Swedish Red Cross, and I'm an advisor, volunteering development with a specific focus on safety, security, and well-being of volunteers. So this session, this short 45 minutes, it's about protecting volunteers during conflicts and emergencies. And specifically, due to it's about this RC3, it's about the connection between science and the research and the more practical world of the Red Cross. I will start out with speaking a bit about the role of the ViCE hub, volunteering in conflicts and emergencies, that is. So we will have a short presentation. There will be some two kind of discussion, reflection parts. But again, feel free to ask questions and comments. So just a short reflection, and please write in the chat box or raise your hand. When you see these two pictures of two volunteers, what are your first thoughts? Please write something in the chat or just raise your hand if you and I will open the floor for a minute or two. So COVID-19 is yeah, the woman to the right seems happy. That's her name is Madeleine from the, as you can see, South Sudan Red Cross. Sorry, and yeah, both are volunteers. The one to the left, the guy is we're volunteering in the Ebola epidemic. So he's working in a team that's concerned with the dead body management, which is one of maybe the more extreme volunteer assignments you can have in the movement. And also there's uh, different aspects of this, of course, both the risk of getting contaminated by the virus, but also going back to his community, and that people will have a hard time accepting somebody that have worked in that kind of volunteer assignments in an epidemic like the Ebola. And also Madeleine is a volunteer, and but also refugees due to the conflicts in South Sudan a couple of years ago, but is also volunteering to make the situation better for other volunteers. And this is what it's about. This is about the volunteers. We have a lot of stories. We have this background in a cooperation with Northumbria University. They that did a together with Swedish Red Cross, a listening study where we interviewed like really open discussions, open questions, a lot of volunteers, because we saw this gap and this need, because there were during the last 20 years or 30 years there have been more than 500 staff and volunteers killed, and we know, and you know, from your national societies, that the volunteers as first responders, being this localization, the power of the localization, that they are that is really important to deliver humanitarian aid to people. So we felt that we need to secure and improve the safety, security, and well-being of the volunteers. So here's a timeline for 1999, year 1999. Just an overview of both decisions, legislations, materials, and decisions that are made in the movement to improve the safety, security, and well-being of volunteers. And this is something that we've been the driving force, Swedish Red Cross, together with a lot of national societies, and the Northumbria University, and of course the Secretariat in Geneva. So what was the ViCE initiative, Volunteering in Conflicts in Emergency? It's based on research, of course, knowledge, and also innovation. I think this is really important, that this initiative brought together practitioners, volunteers, and also other stakeholders to use the co-design research approach to understand better the experience of volunteers in conflicts and emergencies. And as I mentioned before briefly, the approach focused on listening to volunteers in an open way, avoiding predetermined questions or ideas that you can have when you being a researcher, being somebody from the outside, speaking to people that's working in under certain circumstances or in a certain situation. So the study was conducted with 198 volunteers and 84 wider stakeholders participating in 6 countries. So this is the research knowledge and also the innovation background of the ViCE initiative. So the Swedish Red Cross has taken a leading role in developing, collecting this knowledge on volunteering in a challenging humanitarian context through this initiative. And of course, this is cooperation with IFRC, national societies, and ICRC. And also we see now, like we've seen the recent years, also a lot of these protracted crises and conflicts, and we want to look at the gaps and also develop more practice, more approaches, how we handle the volunteering development in this certain contexts. So there's been, of course, this is ongoing work, but there's been a couple of achievements that it's worth telling you about. There is a working group that's part of the Volunteering Alliance. There's been reports to the International Conference on the implementation of the resolution, which is also a milestone, the resolution about safety and security of humanitarian volunteers. Those are a couple of achievements. So, and this is of course obvious for a lot of us in this meeting, being volunteers or staff ourselves, working in different contexts of conflicts and emergencies, but it's really vital to protect local volunteers. They have no option for safe exit when crisis escalates. I mean, our modus operandi in the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement is the access, the localization, but it also, on the other hand, exposes volunteers to, of course, increased risk and vulnerability. And of course, national societies sometimes lack the appropriate system and resources to deliver these insurances, safety nets, psychosocial support, and so on. But still, this really needs to be stressed that there's a lot of national societies that take this really serious. Despite the challenges, they have really embraced the concept of duty of care. But it's also an ethical question and a moral one for national societies to keep volunteers safe and well during their activities. So this is also a call. This session is also a call to join, to engage in this area and these topics, and of course to support the cause. So now it's time to be active again. I would like you to answer the question, and you can do this in the chat box. I will also leave the floor open. We are only 13 participants, so there are possibilities to just hear some voices from the room. That I would like to think a couple of minutes about what are the most, maybe 3 important things or needs as a volunteer, and you think about this when it's a normal condition, but also in emergencies and conflicts. So please just have a minute of reflection, and then write in the chat box or raise your hand if you want to comment the needs and important things for volunteers. So please write in the chat box when you come up with some important things or needs, and also please raise your hand if you like to comment on. So we have a couple of things in the chat box: protection equipment, having some rest when it's possible. Yeah, the number of hours, of course, when working as a volunteer. The recognition part, always important. We tend to focus in some contexts, especially I'm taking an example from Swedish Red Cross, that we focus a lot about the recruitment phase, but we tend to forget sometimes the recognition part. Good onboarding, risk management. Thank you, Ajmal. So any thoughts from your national societies? Anyone who wants to comment? What's the most important things in your national society? From the Palestinians, maybe? No, there's a strong national society with a lot of things going on. So thank you. One of the achievements and one of the most important parts of the work with the safety, security, and well-being of volunteers are the 13 standards. And this is really basic volunteering development, but there are some of some of you that wrote things in the chat that correlates to this. These 13 standards should be implemented on a local level, and on a national society level, on a HQ level. These are really the fundamentals. There's the one definition of volunteer and volunteering. And this is really the base that we have defined who is a volunteer in our national society and who is not a volunteer. So and a lot of the other standards that they need that definition to, for example, with the insurance part, then we need to know who is a Red Cross volunteer. And of course, in different contexts, this could be challenging. There's a lot of community volunteering going on. So this is the base of our mandate, and also, of course, the fundamental principles. There need to be a code of conduct in place that ensure that volunteers can comply with the fundamental principles of the Red Crescent movement. We need a bit data about volunteers. Who are our volunteers? So we can communicate to them, but also know who is insured and so on. There need to be a review, continuously a review of potential threats to the volunteers in the national society, some kind of risk management. We need safety procedures and protocols, and we need incident monitoring. We need to collect and disseminate data so we can make changes in our both programming and organizational development, so we can secure that from the incident we can act and change our programs to the better, so that they will be more safe. Volunteers need access to information and guidance, protective equipment, that was also written in the chat box. Security and safety training, so important. Safety nets and insurance, I mentioned that before. Psychosocial support. We need to both some kind of self-help to equip volunteers with tools, both to help each other and yourself. And the working time also. is really important. And I know that, for example, in Ukraine now, speaking to our colleague, for example, Alexei, that's a huge challenge now, that people are working too many hours. And of course, we need to reimburse the volunteers for their expenditures that is required for volunteering, so that people actually can volunteer. So I would like you now to again reflect yourselves from your national society, if you're connected to a national society as a volunteer or staff. I would like you to pick 3 standards that would be more important or of importance for your national society, that you would like to continue to work with, and why. So start thinking about this. Pick 3 of these standards. I will put them on again. Show the slides so you can see them, and then please, yeah, write in the chat box, and I will. And this time I will also need to hear some voices. I will. If you're not raise your hand, I will pick some of you. That sounded like a threat, but please reflect. Pick 3 that you need to work with in your national society. And if you're not part of the Red Cross or Red Crescent National Society, think about which of them are the most important. So now also like to open the floor. Do we have any reflections? From maybe from Lois at Swedish Red Cross to start with. You said number 6, 11, and 12. Incident monitoring, psychosocial support, and also the working time.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm not so sure about 12 because I was choosing among several different things, but maybe also number 1 at some point and so forth. But yeah, I think incident monitoring we are not so good at within the Swedish Red Cross, and I think we need to work on this, especially for when it comes to the safety of the volunteers. We do not have the best system. And with that, I mean maybe a system that is working out for the volunteers. Maybe we do have a system, but it's not really working as we would like for the volunteers. And psychosocial support, I think we come a long way, but it's always a relevant topic to continuously work on. Psychosocial support for the volunteers is always the best way to take care of volunteers in a way within the Swedish Red Cross, that is. And working time, I think we have had this question up several times within the Swedish Red Cross. When it has been the few of the, should I say emergencies or crises that we had in Sweden, but this is also coming up, that the volunteers are working a little bit too much. Yes.
So thank you, Lois. I mean, that I mean, of course, when you say crisis in Sweden, I mean, we're not in any way in a conflict, but there's still the working hours, and we still lack some incident monitoring. I will leave the floor open again, and now please, if I pick you can always say no, but I would like to hear from maybe other national societies, if there's maybe from the Lebanese or Palestinian Red Crescent, if there are some kind of standards that is maybe needs more attention in your national society from your view, of course. I mean, we are individuals sitting here, we're maybe representing our branch or but still, from your opinion, or we can pick the more of the global level, if Joyce or Ajmal will comment from your perspective, having a lot of contacts with different national societies in different contexts.
Thanks, Jacob. If you ask me, I think all of them are very important.
Of course.
And it really depends, as you say, depending on the context and what is it that is really lacking there. And I'm seeing from the Palestinian Red Crescent colleagues that they've been talking about insurance a lot. So it is I think it is very important, but we know that in some instances it's very, very costly to get insurance from if it's a country that is at war, for example. Of course the insurance premium is very, very high, so we need to look at ways of finding alternatives where where there's not maybe a private insurance that can be that is affordable for the amount of volunteers that is there and so on. So I think looking at other ways of insuring volunteers where it is just too costly, and what other options exist in these areas. I mean, yeah, sorry, I mean, it's everything that is in here is very important, but I think it's very context specific, and and because I'm happy to see, like we have representation, I think, kind of globally over here, and each national society needs is very different. So I would really encourage people to just, kind of maybe tell us a little bit from their context what it is that they need, or what is the priority for them, and then we will see, how best we can support in those cases.
And also, this is continuous work. I mean, this is always a work in progress to ensure these things and to work with these standards. But so I mean, yeah, you heard Louis from Swedish Red Cross, where we, I say we because I'm also based in Sweden, where we struggle. I mean, we're better at certain things. So yeah, please, if anyone from Lebanon or Palestine or others would elaborate maybe just some initial thoughts about these standards, or please, the floor is open. That was the Monica from St. Vincent, or Salam from Lebanon. I won't force you. Oh, sorry.
I find
Hey.
the raise hand.
Okay.
There's a raised hand.
Yeah, I can't find where to raise my hand. So
yeah, please just jump in. That's great.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that the standards are, all the 13 standards are very important, just like Ajmal mentioned, and like, depend on the national society, region, country, context. some of these might be of priority. And when I choose safety and security training, for me, I think that, training is very important, because most of the volunteers will need training and exactly what they need to do. Access to information and guidance, it's really key. And because I think that guides what they have to do, what they have to do in case of emergency, any situation, or even in normal times, how to behave and act as a volunteer, and how to also carry the RCRC brand also. And then, of course, the equipment. I think some of the national societies, if I'm not mistaken, some of them, the volunteers have to buy the equipment themselves. And so if this is something that national societies should try and provide for the volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Was there any other? There was two.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah.
Monica. Yes, please. So I'm a student volunteer, and so my contribution will be based on what I've experienced. Yeah, being the society so far. I think one thing I would comment on is number 7, access to information and guidance. I've noticed that sometimes we don't, usually when the national society is having the various trainings, sometimes it doesn't favor us as student volunteers, even though they try to get some persons to come and help us, but we don't get access to those information. And so what happens is that sometimes when we are on the field, that's when we actually get the form of training. So for instance, maybe being first aiders, it's when you volunteer, you're on the field, that you get to know the basics and then try to give your own contribution to it. Yeah. So that's what I'll comment on. Thanks.
Thank you, Monica. And Adrian from Jamaican Red Cross.
All right, good day, everyone. All right, so as was mentioned before, all 13 are very important, but in Jamaican context, what we usually try to focus on is access of information. So we try to have our team members trained or as sensitized as possible before going into the field to deal with particular activities. One of the things that mainly plagues us, though, is the fact that we only have like a core set of persons who are usually available. So it's just a very limited number of volunteers that are usually available for most activities that we do have to do in certain contexts. And so these people tend to have more knowledge about various areas versus their counterparts in other branches or so on across the island. So you do have a lot of persons who are very trained, are very informed, while others may not necessarily have that kind of information or access to that information. So we try to get more persons in as best as possible, but then it all boils down to their availability, because most persons, they tend to work, so they don't necessarily have much time to be available for the various trainings and so on. But if I'm to focus on any particular ones, I would say security and safety training, psychosocial support, and also working time would also be of very much importance. Compensation and allowances does come in play in some cases, because a lot of our volunteers, although many of them work, some do not work any at all. So this stipend may go a very long way for them in that case. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for sharing. I also think that the thing you mentioned there, with there's these core volunteers in a lot of national societies that are really well trained, but for example, in Swedish context, there's a lot of what we now discussing a lot. This is spontaneous volunteering, and that's really when there's a lot of engagement and a lot of ad hoc volunteers or spontaneous volunteers, or what we will call them. Then the 13 standards, I mean, you really have to look at for the number one, first and foremost, the definition of volunteers. Who is a Red Cross volunteer and who's a community volunteer, and then how can we make their volunteer experience as safe as we can, and So anyone else? We have 7 minutes left. Thank you for sharing. I will and these 13 standards, it's a global standard for that national societies should work with and try to level up in the different standards. But we know, of course, that it is challenging. So I think it's important to do this kinds of assessments and to have ongoing discussions both on HQ level, branch level, volunteering staff, so we can secure this the safety, security, and well-being of volunteers. I will just speak a few words about ViCE today. Where are we? You've seen the 13 standards. There are a lot of national societies that are in different ways working to mainstream these standards, and this is both on local, regional, HQ level. We have a ViCE hub that it consists of different national societies. We're looking for more participants to join. We are now looking at gaps also in the volunteering development. What do we need to develop? And now we are focusing on the volunteer leadership. How can we secure it? Because a lot of the safety, security, and well-being, there need to be a volunteer leadership very locally that could take a responsibility and lead, but also to also mainstream and to make sure that we are living up to the 13 standards. We keep building networks between national society, IFRC and ICRC. We are working very, I mean, there's a lot of experience and good practice coming out of West Africa right now in Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso, where there's this protracted crisis, the Sahel crisis, but also a refugee situation, where we have really good practice. We're going to make some case studies that we can spread wider in the movements. As you all know, there is a volunteering alliance, and there we have a working group as well, where we also look at innovation, the gaps. We look on a policy level, and we are looking for new participants here. Of course, there's a turnover, which is very natural. There, people are leaving the Red Cross for other organizations, maybe other jobs. So if you are engaged, if you have experience, or if you want to learn more and be engaged in this line on a global level as well, you can join us. And my contact information is jacob.engelgren@redcross.se. And of course, if you have contact with Ajmal in Geneva, he can forward to me as well. And as I said, we're always looking for people that would like to join on a network level, to exchange knowledge and to keep contact with each other. If it's in the Volunteering Alliance, or it's the ViCE Hub, or just being in contact with different focal persons in different national societies. So is there any questions, comments, anything unclear? Please raise your hand now. You can ask questions there. We have a couple of minutes left. I would like to thank you all for joining this session. Different time zones. So for some it's in the morning, or for me it's in the evening. So thank you all for joining, and have a good RC3 24 hours. So take care and keep in contact. Thank you all for joining.